This is a picture a few years back of Rabbi YOSEF CHAIM MIMRAN. So Rabbi Mimran's get around. He goes all over the world. He's a continuous traveler. And in the meantime, he picks up different students like myself. And I learned with him for quite a few years. And it was really just actually took me to a completely, totally different realm. But the thing that really is on his mind the most has always been this concept of how to control your thoughts. Or maybe I'm thinking to eliminate your thinking processes. Or I don't know what. So I'm exploring this. This is my third time, at least my third time, beginning this book. I've never made it to the end of it because the concepts that contained in the first part, I haven't mastered them. So I need to hear it more and more to be able to get an idea of what I can do. Because especially now, during this war, and during the atrocities that have happened to the Jewish people, that we realize that the need for God in our lives is really, really strong. But how do we connect to eternity? Because this world, look, it keeps going around. And as just people come into the world or born into the world, people leave the world. It's a circle. So how do we break the circle? How do we connect to the infinite light that's beyond it? Let's see this. He writes now in another section, he says this is section 2, moving above the limitations of the mind. So we see here, we understand, whoop, that helped, that we have limitations, right? So he writes like this: finding the off button, a watcher of the mind. So we talked about this before, and he said in the end of the last sequence that the world in which we find ourselves, as we were not conscious of we are not conscious on this side of life. In other words, we were in our mother's wombs, we were in our parents' minds, we were we, and we came into being into a world that's already moving. It's like trying to catch a train. Doesn't have to be moving super fast. Actually, it moves at different speeds. But let's go on. Finding the off button, a watcher of the mind. So he said, wants to teach us a technique. Can we be free of a highly conditioned mind? Can we step away from those repetitive thoughts that torment us and do not serve us at all? The good news is that yes, we definitely can free ourselves from the shackles of our thoughts. And when we do, we will experience true liberation. Of course, one does not achieve this state of freedom simply by wishing for it, and I think that's one of the things that one has to understand. The dedication of the Kabbalist is to continuously try again and again to reach God. For there is a clear learning process involved. But you can take the first step right now. Beginning today, allow yourself to do this. I had to preface this. Allow yourself to listen to the voice in your mind. Listen to what's going on in your mind as often as you can. Just notice it, that's all. The things you hear, it'll be gone, you'll amaze you. Pay attention, pay particular attention to any repetitive thought. Now, if you're saying thought, just watch it, he says, patterns that you detect, those old phonograph records that have been playing in your head. I'm a person who also always has tunes playing in my head. Perhaps for many, many years it's been going the same thing. Of course, I like the tunes, but going on. So he says, how does this work? When you listen to a thought, although you are certainly aware of that thought, you are at the same time aware of yourself as the one witnessing the thought. Now, this is an idea of looking at yourself or your thoughts sort of like as a third party. That's the way I'm thinking about it. There's me, there's my body, there's the thoughts in my head, and then there's another realm that he's trying to tell us which looks at that. At that point, you have entered a new dimension of consciousness. For while listening to the thought, you are able to feel a conscious presence, which is your deeper self. That is the neshama. Maybe he means that emptiness, or that place beyond thought, behind that thought, or perhaps beneath it. Then an amazing thing happens. The thought loses its power over you. And once it no longer has the upper hand, it will quickly subside. Previously, when you were identifying yourself with your mind, let's say like this, that I am what I think. That's what he's saying. I'm in what is thinking going on in my mind. You are energizing and empowering it. Now, however, because you are no longer identifying with the mind, but rather looking at what's going on in the mind, you are beginning to free yourself of involuntary and compulsive thinking. Now, we had someone that wrote to our forum here in the Tikkun Elevator Call, saying that they suffer from compulsive thinking, or they're an obsessive compulsive personality. So over here he says, here's a cure for you. Not something you could do it's not like taking a pill. You have to work on it. Look at what? Look at your thoughts. When you simply observe a thought without judging it and getting involved with it in any way, you are cutting the ties that bind you to that thought. You are freeing the thought, as it were, so it can quiet down and make its way gently out of your mind. And that is where your real freedom begins. That is when you experience a gap in your mental stream, a state of no mind. Now, getting back to the concept of nothing again. Our minds create realities. And we share those realities with our family and with the people in our country and in our hemisphere, etc., etc., etc. But those things are all mind-driven, culture-driven. Where do we get to the state of no mind? At first, the gap will be short, perhaps lasting just a few seconds. But gradually, because you can continually do this, you will experience more gaps, and they will last longer, and before long, when these gaps occur, you will feel a certain stillness inside of you, and a profound sense of peace. That feeling brings you ever closer to your natural state, a state of oneness with your neshama, which is an aspect of the God from up above, which is no thing. This state of being at one with your neshama may seem unfamiliar to you because in our chaotic world, and the world is dangerous. I think, thinking about these things myself, trying to do them, the world is a dangerous place. There's all kinds of trouble in it. But in any case, our neshamas are so often obscured by the continuous activity going on in our minds. It's also true. But with practice, though, the sense of stillness and peace will grow deeper and deeper. And in subtle ways at first, you will feel a sense of joy, the joy of the neshama, emanating from deep within your being. Now, once again, the neshama. Neshama is an aspect of godliness, of that nothing, that wonderful, joyous nothing, pure peace and beauty, is within us. But it's not something. This is Baruch Fleischman, Tikkun Elevator Call Out.